Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. So, it's been requested that I make a video on my stance on net neutrality since it's such a controversial stance. I put out a tweet on Twitter and put something on my Facebook basically saying that I'm not in favor of net neutrality simply because when you're choosing between the lesser of two evils, choose the one that you can actually kill. And the reason why I said that was because the government is something that you can't kill. The government only grows bigger and gets stronger. So before I get into the details here, I want to say a couple of things because I know people are going to get pissed off about this and you're gonna lose your shit, some of you. And some people actually, after I did the tweet, they're like, I'm unfollowing you on every social media. You've lost a subscriber. Go and have fun with your corporate overlords or whatever, some kind of bullshit like that. So let's not get all bent out of shape about this just because someone disagrees with our opinions. So I think there's some valid points on both sides of the argument. Obviously, most people in the tech community support having net neutrality, and I understand why. It makes a lot of sense. And, you know, and I'll say this as well. If I had my way, right, what would benefit me the most would be net neutrality. If I were to talk about how I would like the net and the internet to operate, it would be in a net neutrality way, right? So I'm in support of the concept of net neutrality, but I'm not in support of the forced implementation of it by the government and it being regulated by the US government. Okay, so I just want to make my stance really, really clear. And I understand that some of you are still going to disagree with me on that. Totally fine, totally cool. We can still be friends. I'm just giving you my opinion. Like I said, I'm kind of reluctant to talk about this just because, you know, it's not that I care about talking about controversial things. It's just like stupid stuff that is going to divide people that doesn't really have any purpose because are you or I going to actually really affect net neutrality? I mean, yes, I know there's petitions and all that, but come on, let's be honest here. We're not really going to affect that on a personal level. We will be affected by it. But there's no point, like whatever I'm going to talk to you about as far as political is not going to really, the only reason I'm making this video is, like I said, because people ask, and also there's a small chance that what I'm telling you will give you some insight maybe for how to make decisions in the future, because I think there's a lesson in here, because a lot of people might say, well, John, why would you be against net neutrality? Why would you not be in support of something that obviously helps you and could hurt you if we get rid of net neutrality? If corporations do what they do with ISPs, it could potentially hurt you, right? And the reason why is because I don't make my decisions based solely on whether something helps or hurts me. I make them based on principles that I feel are timeless, that I hold to, that in the long run, abiding by those principles will produce a better result, right? So in this case, yeah, it's going to hurt me possibly, right, to not have net neutrality, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to just like say, well, okay, in this case, well, since it hurts me or helps me, I'm going to change my principle based on that. You see what I'm saying? So that's where I'm coming from with this. So where to start with this? There's a lot of things here. I mean, the big thing, my big overarching thing is that, you know, I tend to be libertarian in viewpoint. Government is not necessary. That I know that sounds extreme, but read the book, and you know it sounds extreme for me to say that. I would have objected to what I'm saying now, probably even just like 3 months ago. But after reading that and doing some research, I can see how things can operate. I still have some questions. I still have some things that, you know, like I said, that are theoretical, I think, in nature for a true libertarian, but the principles make a lot of sense. And so that's a lot of the basis of where I'm coming with this net neutrality, is that if we allow a government to regulate something, we give them control and power. And, you know, where I'm coming from with this, actually, in the book, it talked a lot about the radio waves and broadcasting, and how, you know, there was basically an open broadcasting and different companies competed for that, and it was basically sorted out in the public without people having to license stations and license frequencies, right? Before the government stepped in and actually made it less competitive by doing that, by essentially giving certain radio stations monopolies on frequencies and whatnot in geographical regions. So there was a competition-driven marketplace, and so the government actually stepped in and took that over. And really, there's no business for the FCC to be regulating these type of things. It can be self-regulated. There's a lot of things that, and this is where I'm coming from again, is that if you understand that a lot of things do not require government intervention, that things can be self-regulated, then that makes a little bit more sense, right? So that's where I look at things as far as I never want the government to come in and regulate something, right, as little as possible. Okay, now I understand that there's some extreme circumstances in the world we live in today, in the political system that we live in today, where government regulation seems necessary. I would argue that it's not really necessary, it's just the way we've set things up. But in a true libertarian type of perspective, with a true libertarian perspective, you wouldn't need to regulate these things, okay? So that's where I come from as a base just level of anytime that you ask me the question of do we need more government, do we need more taxes, my answer is no. We need less government. We need less taxes. We need the government to interfere in things less. We need more private ownership and more private industry. And sometimes, yes, then we're getting into argument here where people say, well, that will create a monopoly. And sometimes, yes, that there are monopolies that are created, and they say, well, we need the government to break up monopolies. Not necessarily true, because with the world that we live in, disruption occurs, right? And it doesn't always occur at the pace that we need. So this is where the biggest argument I think that you guys that are against, against what I'm saying, that are for net neutrality, that you make is you say, well, John, I totally agree with you, right? I totally would agree with you if it weren't for those damn ISPs. I don't know about you, but the only ISP that I have available in my area is Comcast or whatever it is, right? And I don't have a choice between ISPs. And I'm in that boat basically. I mean, I've got like only one, in fact, I've got a shitty ISP here. I'm in Pacific Beach in San Diego, and I think the only one I can choose is Time Warner, and the only thing that they'll give me is like 100 megabyte down and only 20 meg up. There's no other package. There's no other choice unless I go to some extreme business package. So I can't even get 100 up, right? When I was in Tampa, Florida, I think it was like 200 up, 200 down, right? I had really good service. So, and there was probably some other choices. So I understand this argument of saying that there's only one ISP, it is a monopoly, I don't have a choice, there is not a competitive marketplace. I totally understand that, but it's still bullshit. And I'll tell you why that argument is still bullshit. Is because we don't know what other technology is going to come in and disrupt, right? Anytime that you have dissatisfied customers that are forced to use a service that is not providing a good service for them, someone is going to come in and innovate. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to happen, but there's a huge opportunity for innovation, right? If you look at just at the internet right now and some of what's going on here, right? Just with ISPs, you can see that there was like 4G companies that came in. Was it Clearwire that came in and started providing those services? And yeah, it didn't do the best, right? We've got 5G coming out with mobile networks. We've got SpaceX, the plan to have this whole satellite internet system or networking, right? We've got the potential for other companies to come in and build technology, like stuff that we can't imagine yet, right? So there's a lot of potential for stuff that we can't imagine yet that can disrupt the thing. So will the Comcasts and the Verizons and the, whatever it is, these big companies that are these ISPs that sort of have a monopoly in certain areas and own the backbone of the internet in the United States, will they play nicely or will they do a pay-per-play or whatever? I don't know. I don't know if they will, but what I'm saying is that they're even though when you have that monopoly, you still have to balance it out, because if you totally gouge your customers, right, which we could argue that they're kind of doing right now. I mean, so I don't know how much worse it could get, but if you do that, what will happen is that you'll create the incentive for people to invent new technologies, to advance technology, to come up with alternatives, right? And something else will emerge. See, my belief is not in the lack of corporate greed. There's tons of corporate greed. Now, a lot of people get upset, about all the corporate greed, and I have to tell you, what is the corporate greed? It's to make money for the shareholders, which is where, a lot of you have your own 401ks invested in fucking Verizon and Comcast and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like in these big companies that basically are trying to make money for their shareholders. So it's kind of weird that you're like talking about corporate greed, but you're betting your whole financial future on that. Now you can watch my video on why I don't like 401ks and how to really retire. Well, I think 401k and that strategy is bullshit anyway. But if you're doing that and then you're complaining to me and you're saying, John, corporate greed, blah, 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 it's kind of ironic. because they're being greedy for you. Like, you're kind of the one, like, if you weren't buying the shares, if you weren't supporting the company, they wouldn't be trying to make you money for your 401k, right? It's essentially, I mean, there's more to it than that, but I think that's at least a fair argument. So my point is this, it's simply this, is that yes, the ISPs are not going to necessarily do what's in the best interest of the consumer. Yes, they do have somewhat monopoly situations, but disruption will occur. I guarantee you, somehow, some way, if ISPs, if they do what people are afraid of, if they start making it so it's like ridiculously expensive to watch YouTube videos, or to you have to pay a lot more to distribute your content to get high bandwidth speeds based on that, right? And they start making these fast lane, slow lane stuff. There's a few things that are going to happen, okay? First of all, the first thing that's going to happen is that it could hurt them if it's not beneficial to the consumer. It'll either be beneficial to the consumer or not. If it's not, which a lot of people say that it's not, but you don't know. You don't know necessarily. I mean, there's some services that I pay for that, I mean, maybe it'll speed everything up for the stuff that I actually want, and I'm willing to pay that price, right? I don't know. Let's see what happens. But my point is that if it does hurt the consumer so much, then it will create that opportunity for, and you don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, right? A lot of people say, well, you can't. They own the backbones and the infrastructure. Yeah, but someone will come in and build a new infrastructure. Look at Google building Google Fiber in places. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's the possibility of new technologies we didn't imagine. There's alternative internets, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that things could go that, I can't predict this. So, but I have faith in innovation, and I have faith that people will figure things out, and this might actually be a catalyst. It might be a good thing that if these ISPs start doing some bad things, okay, because then that might force us to actually to overcome. Sometimes when there's an obstacle in your way, it makes you actually rise to the occasion. Right, so we'll see what happens, So there's that. Then there's another aspect of this, which is that let's say that they do this pay for play and this whole fast lane bandwidth stuff, and then a lot of people said to me, John, well, that will kill you because you're selling things on the internet, so you're gonna have to pay more to distribute bandwidth or something. Someone on my Facebook said, hey, I am a podcast hosting company, and if they start charging me for bandwidth, right, they could charge me a ridiculous amount and I have to pay a premium and I'll be out of business. Not true, my friend, because every other podcast host will also be in a similar situation. You see what I'm saying? So they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that as well. So maybe just the cost of hosting a podcast will go up. So maybe they'll change the podcast landscape. Maybe podcasts will have to be more profitable. Maybe there'll have to be a new technology to distribute the podcast. Maybe there'll be a new way that things work. You see what I'm saying? It's like it will lead to market changes, right? Based on the pricing. Like, the market adapts. The market always is the most reliable organism that you can count on in the world. The market will adapt. So what will happen? Like, in my case, let's say that I'm trying to deliver my YouTube content or my digital downloads or whatever it is, or what I'm selling on the internet, and it costs me more. Well, all my competitors will be in the same space. They'll be in the same they'll have the same problem. So maybe we'll have to sell things differently. Maybe we'll have to raise prices, or maybe we'll have to figure out a different model of generating revenue, but that will create new opportunities for people that can adapt. For people that are stuck in the old way or what's not working anymore, it's gonna be bad. So my whole bet here is that I will fucking adapt to whatever the market brings, whatever it ends up being. So I don't care. Like, so honestly, like, as far as net neutrality, I actually don't even care, right? I have an opinion. I'd rather not have the government regulate anything, but I have the faith in myself and the market that whatever happens, even if it appears bad, that everyone will be in the same boat. And so the advantage I'll have is that I know how to adapt, and I'll be competitive. If I have to shift my business model, that's fine, right? And a lot of people probably will, but ultimately, whatever happens, not only will I figure it out, but the world will figure it out too. If the ISPs are bad and they do bad things, someone will come along, something will happen, there will be something, right? Or it's not going to end the internet and destroy the internet based on, it's so stupid to think that getting rid of net neutrality is going to end the internet, right? Maybe you have to pay a little bit more. Maybe you have to pay a lot more. I don't know, but I know that that's only a temporary condition, right? That something will give, right? Something is going to go. You can't just have, you know, a situation where things get bad and no one ever tries to reverse the situation, right? Someone will come along, some technology will come along, something. It may be bad. There may be a dark age of the internet for a couple of years. I agree, where people have to adapt, but I'm willing to accept that. I'd be much more willing to accept that than to give any amount of more power to the government, and to regulate something privately or publicly that should be privately owned and held. Now, a lot of people have made the argument, I'm going to kind of hit on all the arguments here. They said, well, the government, like these ISPs, they got a bunch of money from the government. They got a bunch of tax breaks. Well, they also provided a pretty fucking useful service and made the economy. I don't know if you noticed, but you know, Amazon sold more than, like, had a record-breaking online digital sales for this holiday season have been record-breaking. So a lot of, you know, the commerce, right, which the revenue that's generated, the GDP of the US and other major countries is based off of this online commerce, of what these ISPs and the internet and that support and that structure allows. So for them to get tax cuts, it makes a little bit of sense to me, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they've gotten tax cuts or that they've been helped in the past by the government. And yes, they've done some shady things trying to shut out their competition, but that's what people do. That's what a corporation does to be able to build profits. Now, not everything is ethical and on the up and up. I get that. That's totally fine. But I'm not going to say that. I mean, we can't go. You can't change your principle based on what people. You can't say, like, okay, well, I believe in private ownership and less government regulation, and that someone who owns something privately should be able to do what they want with their asset, unless they're evil. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is the whole thing. It's like, most of the stuff that I'm saying about net neutrality, people would say, yeah, someone shouldn't be able to tell me how to rent my house, or what I can do with my car, or what I can do with my assets, my property, but I'm not evil. But see, and when it comes to these ISPs, because we are all pissed off at ISPs, I get it, it's personal, I understand. When it comes to these ISPs, they should be able to tell us, the government needs to tell them what to do. The government needs to stop them from doing what they want, or selling their services how they want. It needs to regulate that. They can't sell something faster, make a fast lane, and something slower. They can't throttle bandwidth. They can't do any of these things. Now, again, I don't like any of those things. They do not seem appealing to me. I get pissed off when I feel like my bandwidth being throttled, right? But it's because I have an agreement with the company that what I'm paying for, right? And so I don't like any of those things. Don't get me wrong. I don't like them. But I would much be rather willing to accept them, and to know that we're living in a little bit more of a free society where the government doesn't try and tell you what you can do with your private assets, rather than to live in a society where we have to have government regulation. The government takes ownership of what should be private things, right? So I feel like the whole, you know, there's a lot of just the world, a lot of even utilities that could be privately owned and could do better being privately owned. And yes, there's problems. Yes, there's difficulties that arise from that. And I mean, some of the solutions, again, I'll just highlight another solution here, is what happens if, you know, I mean, the world is really based on the internet today, right? I mean, so much of e-commerce and transactions and commerce in general is based on the internet. So let's say that you live in some state where Comcast, or some city that Comcast is the only ISP available, okay? And let's say that Verizon, okay, is in a different city, okay? So you got Comcast and you got Verizon. Okay, so in this Comcast city, okay, Comcast says, you know what, we're going to jack up the rates. If you want to watch YouTube videos, it's going to be really, really expensive. You can't even send emails. They do some really underhanded, shady shit that everyone's afraid of that's going to happen if net neutrality disappears, okay? It will actually affect migration. People will actually, and Verizon says, oh no, we're going to just like treat our customers awesome. We're going to lower the rates. We're going to make it competitive. Like we're going to like give you high bandwidth. We're not going to do any of the throttling, any of that stuff, right? What happens is actually you will actually drive migration. People will actually move from a city to another city because of that ISP there. So what I'm saying is, like, I know that seems crazy, but it will happen. I can almost guarantee you that will happen, because I would do it. Because if I, right, I'd either pay the price tag and say, well, you know what, fuck it, you know, internet costs me $50 a month, but if I want everything I want as fast as I want it, it's $200 a month, $300 a month, I'll just stay here. But otherwise, I'm gonna get upset and I'm gonna move, right? Or I'm gonna make some kind of change. So all kinds of solutions to this problem will exist and will happen that don't require regulation, right? Well, you know, regulation is like a Band-Aid fix. It's like forcing people. Anytime you force people to play nice, what do, right? And I'll wrap this up, because this is a long one. I didn't mean to make this video so long, but I'll wrap it up by saying this. Like, have you ever tried to force kids to play nice? What do? They pretend to play nice, but you can't fucking force kids to play nice. They're gonna fucking, as soon as you got your head turned, bam, Tommy gets a pop in the face, right? And what's happening? Now they're both crying. I thought you kids were playing nice. You gotta hug and shake hands and say you're sorry. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. So whatever happens as far as government regulation, there's gonna be more shady, underhanded shit that's gonna happen. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why that's not a good solution, right? Again, I believe in net neutrality as a concept, but let's figure out some way to implement that. If you're really, really interested in it, figure out some way to implement that as citizens. Figure out some way to implement that in a private ownership way. Vote with your stock, you know, with your, you know, get the shareholders to make a change in the company, or to, you know, make promises, right? Figure out some other way, rather than having Big Brother come in and say, no, you guys got to play nice, and you gotta say you're sorry and give each other hugs. That's not a good solution, not in my mind. Again, feel free to disagree with me, to, you know, whatever you want. I honestly, I guess one more wrap up here, which is this, is that I really, even though I've talked about this, because I'll give you my opinion, I really don't care. If it goes one way or it goes the other way, I'm not going to give a fuck, because I'm going to adapt to whatever way it is. If net neutrality stays and it's government regulated, I'm going to say, oh well, you win some, you lose some. I don't care, right? I'm just going to just continue as business as usual. And if it doesn't, and corporations start doing some creepy shit, like, and, you know, messed up shit, and my cable bill goes up or something like that, I'll just fucking adapt. I'll just deal with it, and I'll, you know, assume that everyone else has to deal with it too. And so it's you see what I'm saying? Like, I'll just deal with it. So I'm not going to get all wrapped up and get all emotional and get all upset. I'm just going to deal with it, right? This is why I'm making this video. It's just so you understand that, like, this shit doesn't really actually even matter. Not really. Not, you know, I understand it will affect you in some way. But honestly, like, you're just going to have to deal with it either way. And you don't know. You don't know. See, a lot of people think they know what's going to happen and what the results will be and how catastrophic and how... Fuck. I don't listen to that kind of stuff, because I know that my bet is on human ingenuity. My bet is on myself and human ingenuity, and I know that people adapt, that the world adapts, that the market adapts, and somehow we'll figure out a way, even if Comcast acts like a fucking bully. That's all I got to say about that. You're happy to, or you're welcome to leave your comments below. I know that many of you will, and you know, whatever. All right, if you haven't subscribed already, click the subscribe button below and click the bell so you don't miss any videos. This is probably the last time I'll talk about net neutrality. Talk to you later. Take care.